What a glorious Monday in which we can say that we will actually have tackle football that will count in the standings later on this week from Dublin.
Amen.
Welcome into the program. This is Three-Man Front. Pat Landrum, Molly, and Conrad. The gang's all back together. A very important week in the history of college football as we get ready for another season coming up this weekend.
I can't wait. And we get the game in Dublin. We get some other games that normally in the course of a season you're not going to worry about. You're not going to be too concerned in. But this is the beautiful thing about week 0. I love week 0. I want week sub-0. We get to watch teams. We get to watch organized football and get that first little taste before it all gets going next week.
Should be a lot of fun, a lot to get into this morning, including some bad news from Tuscaloosa in regards to their starting running back, Jam Miller.
Season's over.
We will talk to Alex Scarborough from Bama 247 at 10:30. We'll get his thoughts on the depth of the running back's position. We'll also discuss with him the second scrimmage that took place on Saturday at Bryant-Denny, in which that's when Jam Miller broke his collarbone. We will also talk about the Auburn Tigers. They had their scrimmage on Friday. A lot of their wide receivers were yellow no contact jerseys, but they did do a little bit of participating on Friday's scrimmage. But we start with news coming out of Auburn about 20 minutes ago, and this is a no-brainer as Auburn Athletics, they have announced that they will retire 2010 Heisman Trophy winner Cam Newton's number 2 jersey, making him the 4th player in program history to have his number retired. The retirement ceremony will take place at the Georgia game on October 11th at Jordan-Hare Stadium. So he will now join Pat Sullivan, number 7, Bo Jackson, number 34, Terry Beasley, number 88, as former Tiger football players to have their jersey retired. So wonder why it took so long for this to happen, because I thought that would have happened pretty quickly, based on the fact that he won the national championship and he won the Heisman Trophy, consensus All-American. So now he will get his due in October against Georgia.
Yeah, Cam had to be sitting around going, wait a minute, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, what? What's wrong with this?
Well, the Hall of Fame is 5 years. Jersey retirement's 15, apparently. I guess that's the rule.
Well, my question is, and I don't have the current roster memorized, is we have current players, I'm guessing, wearing the number 2s, right?
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember if I remember any other number 2s after Cam Newton.
There are not.
Okay.
There are not. At least this year, there are not.
Maybe that was one of those.
Maybe that was the little sneaky hint that they were going to retire the number when they released all of the numbers and who had been assigned what, and there was no number 2. I did not notice it.
Yeah, so the 4th Auburn player will have his number retired. That will come on October 11th at Jordan-Hare Stadium. But the big story this weekend, and it was kind of interesting because the scrimmage went off on Saturday. I was given no information. Now, I was told, I talked to an individual yesterday afternoon about the Alabama scrimmage, and I was told that they saw when Jam Miller got hit and that he went into the tent. But there was no conversation. There was no activity that led to anyone to think that he had a serious injury. And then, of course, we got the news Saturday night, and then we got the release yesterday from Kalen DeBoer saying Jam Miller suffered an upper body injury in Saturday's scrimmage and went in for a procedure on Saturday evening. Jam should recover fully with a timetable for his return yet to be determined. We did find out that it is collarbone. The senior from Tyler, Texas, was the leading tailback for the Tide last season, 668 yards, 7 touchdowns. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry. His top game in 2024 came against South Florida. He rushed for 140 yards on that night. So then the question is, who is next beast up? We've heard that so many times with Alabama's recruiting classes over the year under Nick Saban. It will be Richard Young, the sophomore from Lehigh Acres, Florida. He was rated as the number 1 running back by ESPN coming out of school. He's 5'11", 216. The guy after him, there have been comparisons based on his size with Derrick Henry. Daniel Hill, the sophomore from Meridian, Mississippi, he was a 4-star coming out. He is 6'1", 244. If I'm not mistaken, Derrick Henry was at 252 when he was at Alabama. So it's about an 8-pound difference, but he has a very Derrick Henry-like build. So he's the bigger back of the two. And then you got Kevin Riley, who's a sophomore from Tuscaloosa County High School. I covered him in high school, and he's had a really nice fall camp. So those are the three guys, and we'll ask Alex Scarborough coming up at the bottom of the hour exactly what the pecking order is going to be and which one of these backs could take the ball and proverbial run with it.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it for Jam Miller, but hopefully he's going to get his opportunity sooner rather than later. And you heard what Ryan Grubb had to say about the guy, and just having that veteran presence in that room. He's still going to be there, but unfortunately, Conrad not going to be available. But I know you said it tongue in cheek. I don't think that this is the worst thing that could happen to this offense at this point in the season.
No, I mean, it certainly doesn't help anything, but it just, the reality is someone's going to have to step up. Maybe multiple guys are going to have to step up, but a lot of what talking to people in Tuscaloosa over the weekend, a lot of it comes down to, they have a lot of guys with a great skill set, but it's who's going to be able to get in there and block, right? Who's going to be able to help in pass protection? Who's going to be able to do all the things outside of just toting the rock that, it takes to be a starting running back at Alabama. So, opportunity for some of these younger guys to step up, and this is why, when you go and you get a transfer running back out of Louisiana and some people start looking around like, man, why are you bringing in this guy who might be a fourth stringer on the depth chart into Dre Washington? And it's because of opportunities like this, right? You need that depth, and so Alabama certainly has it, but some of the young guys are going to have to show a little something.
So Ty Simpson had another strong scrimmage over the weekend. He ran the ball a couple times for long gains. The offense had some untimely false start penalties. The defensive line was having their way against Vandermark, I was told. Vandermark struggled on the offensive line. Elijah Pritchett had a good day on the offensive line. Wide receivers, a nice scrimmage. Young and Hill are behind Jam Miller in the backfield until obviously Jam Miller got injured. Some defenders that stood out, I was told, Noah Carter, Nakai Hill-Green, who's the transfer from Pittsburgh. He had a really nice day. Bray Hubbard is, your jersey.
That's right.
Conrad.
Heavy hitter in the backfield there.
Yeah, and freshman cornerback Dejon Lee. He is actually going to get some playing time. He looked really good.
6'4", he should.
Yeah, he looked really good in the second scrimmage. Connor Talty hit a couple long field goals. I'm told that the punting situation continues to be fluid, that is going to come down to the wire. So
linebacker position depth there, would that be the biggest reason for pause, or would it be another position group?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, the defensive line continues. I was told that you're not going to have the so-called, if you're looking for someone like Anderson, it's not there. But they're hoping that the interior is going to be able to get enough push that the Overtons, the Smiths of the world, can find their way into the backfield. So, but the unit as a whole looks very good. Talking about the defensive unit. Jaden Roberts still dealing with a concussion. He did not participate in the scrimmage. Neither did defensive lineman James Smith. Now, Smith is getting closer, and I know Kalen DeBoer mentioned that in his post-scrimmage press conference. No practice today for Alabama, taking the day off. School is in session, I believe, Wednesday in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, that's when school starts. So they'll practice. They took off yesterday and today. They're practicing tomorrow, and then they kind of have to switch some things around because they have to go to class.
Yeah.
Got to make those good grades, right?
So Tuesday, Coach Grubb will be available for the media. Wednesday will be Coach Womack, Coach DeBoer on Thursday. And then there's no more availability as we're about to get into the general routine as we're getting closer to game day. Friday, when Landrum and we were down at UAB watching their practice, they scrimmaged on Saturday. Auburn had their second scrimmage on Friday. Was told that the offensive line had a better day as they were able to open up some holes. The running game finally got going for Auburn. But Keldrick Falk and Kieron Crawford continued to have a very, very good fall camp on the defense.
The things that I've heard from people I trust down there is that the defense going to be better than maybe originally anticipated, and the chance in the secondary with as much depth as they had back there to be a pretty dominant group.
Several players, as I mentioned earlier, they wore yellow jerseys. Eric Singleton, he's dealing with a thigh bruise. Perry Thompson, he was wearing a brace on his knee. Cam Coleman practiced, but he was in a yellow non-contact jersey. All are expected to be completely fine for Baylor. They're just obviously being very careful. Auburn, once again, perfect on field goals, which is huge. And Friday night will be the final scrimmage for the Auburn Tigers. This will be a dress rehearsal for the Waco trip. So they will wake up Friday morning, and they'll go through the whole routine that they're going to have in a couple of weeks in Waco. And then they'll practice under the lights there at Jordan-Hare Stadium. We will attempt to, coming up at 11:30, Hugh Freeze's press conference coming up. And we will hear from him in regards to what he thinks about this Auburn team after the second scrimmage, maybe some of those injuries, and who knows, maybe somebody will ask a question about the ongoing saga as who's calling plays on what down.
By the way, I guess Cam's number 2 jersey has been unofficially retired since he left school, because I just went back
Nobody's
a bunch
had
of different seasons and no number 2 listed on any of those rosters. So,
okay.
If you're not going to use it, you might as well retire it.
Yeah. Well, and I know some baseball teams do this where they have, I don't know what's the Yankee rule before they retire somebody. Do they have a rule in regards to they have to make the Yankee Hall of Fame? Do they have to be in the MLB Hall of Fame?
Oh, I don't know what exactly the guidelines are
for the
in terms
Cardinals,
of how they retire them.
For the Cardinals to retire a number, you have to either be a member of the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame or the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame to be considered.
Okay.
So for example, Albert Pujols, that's a no-brainer. He's, his number 5 is going to be retired. Yadier Molina, his number 4, going to be retired. But neither one of them are retired yet because, one, they're not in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and you have to be out so many years before the Cardinals consider you a Cardinal Hall of Famer. So you have to wait for that. So I didn't know.
The Yankees apparently have an executive council that makes that decision.
Okay. And the reason why, because the Cardinals have not given anybody a number 4 or number 5.
I thought you had to be honored before a game and be given a knockoff flat screen television before you can officially be retired.
That's only if you're in the booth. But for example, like when Derek Jeter retired, right? Before they had the official ceremony, they're not going to give away the number 2, right? Same thing with like Mariano Rivera. They didn't give away 42.
Correct.
Like there's just an understanding that number's off limits.
It's kind of the unofficial retirement of somebody's
Correct.
jersey. And obviously I think that's what has happened at Auburn.
Well, Cam's had a statue. So now it's just
Yeah.
you retire the jersey.
Well, the Alabama heat and humidity can be brutal, but don't let it affect your home and family. Keep them comfortable with an affordable Train cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand for 11 consecutive years, and they're the official cooling partner here at Jocks. So go and find a comfort specialist near you at train.com.
So coming up on the show, we'll talk to Alex Scarborough. He will join the program at 10:30. We'll hear from Hugh Freeze at 11:30. At 12:30, a very special day. 115 years ago today, Rickwood Field opened up. We'll talk to Mike Newton from the Friends of Rickwood as a very special day in the history of our city and baseball a whole in the United States, with Rickwood Field opening 115 years ago today. All that straight ahead on this Reaction Monday on Jocks. 10:17, welcome back in. This is Jocks. This is Three Man Front. This is game week, 5 days away from kickoff. Really excited about that. We've got high school football getting underway on Friday. Then we've got games in Dublin, Ireland starting on Saturday. So you know what? We wanted to fire everybody up across the great state of Alabama. This is what it would sound like as we get ready for the 2025 college football season.
Under head coach Mike Norvell, Florida State has blocked 5 kicks in opponent's season openers. 3 against Georgia Tech. Snap, spot, kick is on the way. Headed through the uprights. It's good. And Georgia Tech has shocked the Seminoles here in Dublin.
Ball on the near side hash. Moss and company with 13 seconds. Calls for the snap. Hands it off to Marks. Marks with room up the middle, and Marks into the end zone on the ground. And USC takes a 26-20 lead with 8 seconds remaining here in Las Vegas. Now make it 5 straight to start the season. The Tigers just cannot grab victory.
He's lining it up. 5 seconds left. NIU up 16-14. 62-yarder. Snap, hold, Jeter's kick. It's blocked! It's blocked! It's blocked! Picked up by NIU! Picked up by NIU! The Huskies have done it! The Huskies with the biggest upset in NIU history! They come to South Bend, Indiana, and they knock off the number 5 team in the country.
From the 43-yard line for Colorado, here's the ball game. Snap back to Shedeur Sanders. Rolls left, has time, being chased. He throws it for the end zone. It is... Oh, he may have caught it. He did! It's a catch for a touchdown by LaJonte Wester on the last play in regulation.
From the 25, Milroe will sling it, far sideline, near sideline rather, and Williams makes an adjustment, makes the catch, spins away from 2 Georgia defenders, breaks away from another, and he's going to go in the end zone for a touchdown up the near sideline. We had 2 guys, couldn't catch him. Snap back to Beck in the pocket, thrown for the end zone in the back corner. It's intercepted. Trying to go to Colby Young. Pass was short, intercepted by Brown, the freshman cornerback.
4 men behind him, 3 deep. Salter running to his right. Salter throws to the right sideline, out of bounds. The clock is expired. Give me liberty. Kennesaw State ends the undefeated season for the Flames and secures its first ever FBS victory.
4 seconds to go. You're an offensive receiver. Keep that ball alive. Last play. Hail Mary. Huff gets it off. Gets to the end zone. And it's gone! Touchdown! Cam Vaughn behind the pile. Incredible!
The referee looks at his watch. He blows the whistle. It's the greatest day. And every man, woman and child stands to applaud. Pouring joys. Sweet mother of Jesus, they have pulled off the unthinkable. Goliath Abu.
If that doesn't get you fired up for the college football season, you're not alive.
That
'Cause
guy who does Gaelic football, that last call that our listeners heard, it's the equivalent of David Attenborough to me. Watching Our Planet version documentary.
Or the Spanish
that
broadcaster that does goal.
Yes. Yes.
Goes crazy. There's some great moments.
There were a lot of great moments.
Forget the obviously kicked off in Dublin, Georgia Tech.
You know what's so
beating
bad?
Florida State.
When it said from the 25, Jalen Milroe, I caught myself catching my breath. Like holding my
the
breath.
Vanderbilt game?
Holding my breath.
I thought the last
what clip is this going to be?
I thought the last clip was going to be Vanderbilt beating Alabama. I thought that's what Pat was going to do to end it.
I have chills.
That's an alternate version.
So you had Georgia Tech knocking off Florida State. Then you had USC upsetting LSU that opening weekend. And then also in there you had
Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State's only win. Colorado's Hail Mary against Baylor. You also had Jacksonville State's Hail Mary against Louisiana Tech. You had the Bama-Georgia game. Of course, Ryan Williams' acrobatic catch. That was the Georgia radio broadcast. And then, of course, wrapped it up with the Gaelic football announcer. So like I said, if you don't get fired up over that montage, then you're just not a college football fan. So who knows what kind of highlights we're going to have starting this weekend with Farmageddon there in Dublin. Well, there was some college football playoff news over the weekend, and a lot of us are absolutely – I mean, this is kind of like I'm punch drunk when I get to read this story. So now the Big Ten, they can't get enough support for a 16-team playoff, so now we're going to go to a 24 and a 28-team playoff model. A 7-7-5-5-2-2 format. It would likely eliminate conference title games, so I think that would upset a lot of people in Atlanta, Georgia, and Charlotte, North Carolina, and other parts that has these conference championship games. Now, according to the reports, the discussions about this 24 and 2018 playoff model, it's early enough that the concept has been socialized amongst the Big Ten, but really not discussed at great length with the other conferences. Now, the Big Ten and the SEC commissioners, they did hold a preliminary call this last Friday, according to Yahoo. SEC ADs meet in a regularly scheduled gathering this week where it may be discussed. SEC ADs, they're spending more time now trying to figure out if they're going to go to 8 or 9 conference games. That's mainly the biggest discussion that they've been having. So doing a little bit of digging, for the 24-28 team format, it would allow for the top 4 seeds to receive a first-round bye. Conferences would presumably hold discretion in determining their qualifiers, a decision that will likely focus on league standings. So not so much if you go play in a conference championship game, because the conference championship game would go by the wayside. That would not be played anymore. So if you eliminate the conference championship games at the beginning of December, That would set in motion the ability to play at least the first-round games of the playoff in the second week of the month when there are no NFL games are being played. So that would be huge. There would be no conflict. And the addition of a fifth postseason round also opens up the possibility for the first two rounds to be hosted on campus.
That's the only good part of this idea.
Yeah.
More on-campus playoff games, yeah.
So, and we'll go around the room and get everyone's thought on this. Mine is, if 14 of the 34 combined teams are from the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten Conference, that is 41% of the total field that would be in the playoff. So in other words, doesn't matter the results of what's happening or who's winning the division or the conference, whatever the case may be, 41% of the teams are already decided before we know if any of those teams are any good. That's a problem in my opinion, not to mention the fact that if you want the kind of Saturday drama that we just played for you on that audio clips, that's gone. That's gone. That would be the equivalent of the Braves playing a game in April against the Mets. That has very little to do with what's going to happen in September. It's just one of 3 games.
Go 8-4, you're probably in the playoff.
Correct. So if you're talking about, if you're a television executive at ESPN or Fox, why would you be for this? Because all of a sudden that is going to take away from your ratings on a Saturday, because interest is going to take a hit. It's not going to mean as much. Not to mention the fact that if you are a fan of the bowl system, and I know a lot of people are not, but if you were, you can kiss the bowl system goodbye because there's no need to have them.
I hate to make the comparison to the NBA, but that's something we heard from the NBA for years, was I don't bother watching the regular season because most of the teams get in the playoffs. That's when I start. I would hate to think that that becomes the mindset from your average college football fan and viewer when it comes to this game that we love so much.
My problem with it mainly is just, and again, we've talked about this a lot, how many teams in a given year do you actually think can win a national championship? Because it's not 12, and it sure as heck ain't 24 or 28. I mean, you look at last year, right? Who was the 24th best team at the end of the year? Memphis. Good program. Does anybody think Memphis can win a national championship in football? No. So why are we giving them a seat at the table and expanding this thing out to just include a bunch of teams that aren't actually going to have a shot at winning the national championship? Because I'm with Pat. I think it dilutes the regular season product, and it would be a short-sighted money grab of, more playoff games without thinking of how it would have the long-term repercussions on viewership.
The only thing that it would help was if you're not a fan of the amount of bowl games, if you tie in some of the bowl games that are viewed as meaningless and you include them in some of these first round, second, whatever matchups, then maybe that makes it more appealing. But then again, you're going to have less bowls. So is everybody okay with that? I would think for the most part people would be, but depends on which side of the fence you're on. If you're one of those programs like an Ohio State and you're a fan, do you really want this? No. Alabama, probably not. No. But if you haven't been to a college football playoff and you're a fan of one of those teams, let's just take an Auburn fan. Do you want that, or does it make it more special to earn a berth in the current format that we have? I would think the latter.
See, that's what I'm saying. Are you really going to feel great if you're that 28th team? We made the college football playoff. Do you have a sense of accomplishment from that feat when it's the reality of it is, okay, well, we kind of just got a gimme spot.
But part of me, Conrad, says let's go ahead and let's do this for a couple of years.
Just see what happens.
And say, all right, this is what you asked for.
Well, I mean, FCS does 24 teams. Seems to work for them. But the only thing I like about that still, more on-campus playoff games, and I would like that if we stayed at 12, 16, whatever, more games on campus. I think that's a great idea.
I just want to say, as the Big Ten graduate in the room, when this news came out over the weekend, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for the conference. Like Pat said, having 14 of the representatives being from 2 conferences is ridiculous. And when you look at last year's order of finish in the Big Ten, I think the 6th and 7th teams were Iowa and Michigan. No offense to Iowa and Michigan, I don't want to see a 7-5 team in the playoff. I don't want to see an 8-4 team in the playoff. I think this is stupid. I think this is ridiculous. Keep it at 12. Don't go to 24, 20, or however many it is. That's way too many teams. This is not March Madness. This is college football.
Great point. When we come back, Alex Scarborough will join the program from Tuscaloosa. We'll get his thoughts on the injury to Jam Miller as Alabama gets ready for Florida State in less than 2 weeks. That's next on Three Man Front. It is Reaction Monday here on Jocks. This is Three Man Front. Pat Landrum, Conrad Molly with you until 2 o'clock. A lot of action over the weekend. Second scrimmage is wrapping up around the Southeastern Conference, including the Alabama Crimson Tide on Saturday. Joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline from Bama 247, Alex Scarborough joins us now. Alex, I hope you're doing well. And a lot of news came out of this weekend. Unfortunately for Alabama faithful, not so good news about the running back one. What is the very latest that you can tell us about Jam Miller?
Yeah, he's dealing with an upper body injury that's going to knock him out for at least the first game against Florida State. Would not surprise me if it's a little bit longer than that, but it's not a season-ending type of deal or anything along those lines. But really unfortunate thing where during the scrimmage he got banged up. It didn't look that bad, didn't sound that bad, which is why Kalen DeBoer did not mention it in our post-scrimmage press conference. But when they looked at it and got further testing, they realized, hey, there's more to this, and we're going to have to have a procedure done and have to sit him down for a little while and get him back for hopefully the stretch run and getting him into SEC play. But you look at it as kind of an opportunity for those backs behind them, whether you're talking about Richard Young, Daniel Hill, Trey Washington. I think those are your three most likely candidates. But the onus is on them now to go into what I think will be a tricky road environment in Tallahassee here in a few weeks.
Alex, based on people that you've talked to, what was the expected workload for Jam Miller?
Oh, he was definitely going to be the number one tailback. I think he was going to take the majority of the carries. I do think the second and third backs were going to get run. Because look, the bottom line is Jam he's had a good camp. He had a good spring, but you're talking about a guy who's been in the program for a long time, who solid, dependable, but I don't think has necessarily shown star power or necessarily shown making explosive plays, which is something they really need at that running back position, especially now that Jalen Milroe is no longer the quarterback and can provide those types of runs. So I think they were probably, in any instance, going to get a guy like Richard Young, a guy like Daniel Hill, a guy like Trey Washington, those opportunities, especially early in the season, to see if they can provide a little bit of spark. Because as good as you feel about Ty Simpson, who, by the way, can run the football, and that receiver core with Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton, you go down the line, you got to have balance in this league. You got to have balance when you go on the road to Georgia. So I think those other backs were going to get reps regardless, but there's no question that Jam was going to be the guy. He just does all the things at a really high level. And I think that's what I've said multiple times is it's not just the running ability. It's the fact that he's so dependable in terms of knowing the offense, pass protection, catching the football out of the backfield. He's just a really dependable guy who I think they're going to miss, especially I think people are underrating the fact that you're having to deal with this not just late in fall camp, but going into, I think, what's going to be an amped up environment in Tallahassee and throwing guys into that equation, quarterback and running back, who haven't really had to go through that before.
You mentioned Ty Simpson and his deceptive ability to run the football. I was told on Saturday he had a couple of long runs during the scrimmage. Talk a little bit about Ty. He's not just a pocket passer. Granted, he's not Jalen Milroe, but I think he's going to fool some people being able to get out of the pocket, and he's going to make some positive yards.
Yeah, he's not a burner per se, but he's a guy who is not afraid to use his legs. There's a reason 247 Sports had him as a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. He does like to run. If anything, actually, I think one of the biggest challenges for him this late in his career was trying to figure out how to stay put a little bit in the pocket and not have quite so much happy feet. When you look at some of his film from a year ago, 2 years ago, I think he bails a little bit early and relies on his arm instead of having a strong base. So you want to see him stand in the pocket, but also he's going to take advantage of that athleticism. He's a tough guy who's not going to be against fighting for yardage. So I think at the end of the day, you're looking at a guy who can run the football, but will be looking to run to throw the ball more than anything in terms of just buying time. You're right. He had a good run coming out of that scrimmage. He was actually really accurate in that scrimmage too. He only had one or two really incompletions, a couple of drops in there too, which I don't think you really count against him. So a guy who can do a little bit of everything. The question mark for him It's not the athleticism. It's not the efficiency necessarily. It's one, take care of the football, because that's a question with every quarterback, but also, can you make explosive plays? That's the thing I go back to. I think Kalen DeBoer said it late in spring, might have been right before the scrimmage. He said, at the end of the day, we don't want a game manager at quarterback. We want a guy who can go out and make football plays and make explosive plays. So I think that's one of the boxes that we need to see Ty check, whether that's him doing it with his feet, whether it's putting the ball in the air and letting Ryan Williams go run up underneath it.
And Alex, he's got to have that offensive line protecting him. Based on what you thought about the offensive line 2 weeks ago and now after 2 scrimmages and all the reports from practice, what are your thoughts heading into the season?
Yeah, maybe some inconsistencies there and pre-snap stuff that they've got to get cleaned up. Sort of some of that is to be expected, I think, because there's been a wrinkle, right, with Jaden Roberts being out. And even before he had the concussion, he kind of had a little bit of a competition on his hands. When you talk about Cam Dewberry and Geno Vandermark fighting for both of those guard spots. So there's a little bit of an influx there on the offensive line where it looks solid. Before that, where you really had one position you're battling for, now you got 2. I think it says more about the talent that Alabama's brought in, that they feel good about. Both Geno, who played quite a bit off the bench last year, both at center and at guard, and then bringing Cam Dewberry in over from Texas A&M, had a really good work in the offseason, getting his body ready, a guy who NFL teams sort of have their eye on. I think it says more about what they have there as opposed to what they don't have. The question to me isn't how good the offensive line can be. I think it'd be really good. It's just, how did it reach its ceiling? And I think sort of emblematic of all of that is Caden Proctor and what we know he can be as a left tackle versus what he shows consistently every single week. He can be a top 10 pick, but we need to see him stay healthy, and we need to see every week him bring it. And I think that really applies to the entire offensive line for Alabama.
Alex Scarborough joins us on the Higginbotham hotline from Bama 247, talking about Alabama wrapping up their second scrimmage over the weekend. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, you just mentioned the wide receiver core. All indications are they've had a very good camp, and Isaiah Horton is going to be someone that, if the opponents don't realize he's a big receiver and you put all your attention towards Jeremy Bernard and, of course, Ryan Williams, all of a sudden Horton could give flashes of what the Tide fans saw a couple years back with a very deep wide receiver core. Just kind of go down the line there of what you expect from that group coming up in Tallahassee.
Yeah, they're loaded, especially at the top of the receiver room. We know what Ryan Williams is capable of. I think you want to see a little bit more in terms of consistency. The back half of the season, he sort of got worn down a little bit. And I think some of that was, look, it's a true freshman, but also a true freshman who skipped his senior year of high school. A lot of it was Jalen Milroe and the offense constricting, the passing game specifically. So can he consistently bring it every single week and be a guy who could be not just the face of Alabama, but one of the faces of college football? And then Jeremy Bernard, I think, is the most underrated player on the team, maybe. Parker Brailsford probably has a word to say in that argument, but just does everything at a really high level. But then you bring Isaiah Horton into it, because he does have that size, like you referenced. I think he's 6'4", 6'5", gives you that length, but also has the speed to go over the top. I think he's going to be a massive threat. I think he's going to be a really good player, not just in his own right, but with the way he can unlock and take some of the pressure off of Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard as well. But there is depth there. You love what you hear about Rico Scott. Looks like the guy who's going to be the fourth receiver, is probably one of the fastest guys, not the fastest guy on the team. And then some really interesting pieces behind it, whether, Latsier Brooks had a huge spring, really athletic. There are guys in this receiver room, and you're just waiting to see, can the quarterback unlock it? Because it wasn't working with Jalen. But I think the addition of Isaiah and the way the offense will change in Ty Simpson's hands has the potential for this Alabama wide receiver room to look drastically different than a year ago and be in the conversation to be one of the best receiver rooms in the country.
Speaking of difference, how much difference, Alex, have you been able to tell with Alabama's offense, maybe even Kalen DeBoer, since the arrival of Ryan Grubb?
Yeah, I think there's a quiet confidence that's there. A lot of it's the familiarity that those two have. They both feed off each other, and they both complement each other in really interesting ways, because Grubb is just a super fiery guy. The more you learn about him, the more you understand, hey, I know why Nick Saban wanted to hire him, because they're in some ways cut from the same cloth. But Kalen is that big picture guy, presents a calmness, and I think they balance each other out. And you talk to people throughout their respective careers who have seen them together, and they're just like, it's special when the two of them are together. But even more than that, I think is just continuity is kind of a thing that's been said over and over again. But more than that, it's like, hey, everybody knows what everybody's supposed to do at this point. This isn't a new offense anymore. And by the way, they upgraded at several key positions to where they just look at year two, and I think they know what all of this is capable of. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to look like Washington 2023 right out the gate, but when you talk about the depth at receiver, what they have potentially on the offensive line, and if you get that quarterback play, maybe you start to see the offense that Greg Byrne flew out to Seattle to go get when he hired Kalen DeBoer. The plan all along was to have Ryan Grubb as the OC, and the Seahawks sort of squandered that. But a year later, they get to try that again, and quiet confidence is the phrase I would use, because the quarterback is still a question mark. But if that box gets checked, I think the potential is there for this offense to make a huge leap from what we saw a year ago.
All right, let's talk on the other side of the ball, the defense. A lot of talk about the defensive line. Can it get enough pressure up front? The secondary, it looks solid. Just your take on what you have been able to see and the people you talk to about Kane Womack's group.
Yeah, solid, I think, might be underrating the secondary, because it's across the board. You look at the starters, Damani and Zabian at cornerback, two of the better corners in the country. I think Zabian is wildly underrated going into his sophomore year. He just carries himself like a pro and really made great strides as a true freshman last season. I think he's going to be really, really good. And then Keon Sabb and Bray Hubbard at safety. Bray stepped in for Keon when he got injured a year ago, played at a really high level. And we know what Keon can do in terms of being a playmaker, the maturity he has on the back end, but it's the depth that's really the difference. And that's the thing you started to hear more about in the spring and then carry it over into preseason camp. Just kept hearing Dijon Lee's name. Probably not a surprise for a 5-star, but a 5-star cornerback in a crowded room really continues to make a case for why you should get on the football field. And then Cam Calhoun, the transfer from Utah, played quite a bit there last year. I think he's going to be a guy they depend on off the bench as well. So the defense on the back end is really good. Linebacker, they got lucky. I think they'd even say that by getting Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson back when you didn't expect either one of those things to happen because of the draft and NCAA eligibility rules. Add in Nakai Hill-Green and you look solid. The question, to your point, is can you get to the quarterback? Because Kane Womack was having to use smoke and mirrors a year ago and trying to send numbers and holding his breath at the back end of the defense would hold up because there wasn't a lot of guys who could win one-on-one battles. LT Overton was the best guy at doing that. 39 pressures and only 2 sacks. One of those parts of that sentence is great. The other part, not so much.
Yeah.
So can he be a guy who kind of closes that gap? And can guys like Quay Russaw, maybe even a Noah Carter down the line, can you bring guys on the field, even if it's just third down packages, you can get to the quarterback? If you do that, I think this defense goes from good to great.
That is Alex Scarborough. You can follow all of his work there at Bama 247. Just an outstanding analyst in regards to what has transpired so far in fall camp, as we're less than 2 weeks away from kickoff at Doak Campbell. Always appreciate your time, Alex. Enjoy the next couple of days. I know practice is off, but there's still plenty of work to be done. We hope to catch up with you again very soon.
All right. Thanks, Wes.
Appreciate it. That's Alex Scarborough joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services. I want to remind everybody about Artec Tractor in Jasper. They're having a sale right now on all their fluids and filters from now until the end of September. That's all oil filters and air filters, also engine oil and hydraulic oil. That's 15% off those items. Locally owned specialists in mowers and tractors, mower brands like Toro, Cub Cadet, Gravely, Bobcat, Spartan. I got on my Toro Zero turned on Saturday, got all my yard work done as we get ready for kickoff. Call Jeremy or Greg or go by and see them just north of Jasper on Highway 5 at Artec Tractor, or go to their website, artectractor.com. More three-man front on this Reaction Monday. We'll get to your phone calls, 1-800-239-WJOX, courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. It must be in the water. We had Jimbo Fisher about a week ago, went on a podcast, said he's interested in coming back and coaching. Now another national championship winning coach has done an interview, and he says he wants back in the game. We'll get into that next here on Three Man Front. The name probably will not surprise you.
Well, it's not going to surprise you that right now we still have stinging insects. Hopefully you weren't affected over the weekend. The biting kind, the kind that hurt, the kind are just a nuisance in your yard when you're trying to have fun or maybe just keep the yard up. Well, our friends at Stark Exterminators got great news. A family-owned company, over 61 years, in fact, they've got a great team of people who care about what they do. They have licensed professionals. They'll come to your home, your place of business, inspect it thoroughly inside and out, take care of any issues you have there in the yard, maybe inside the house, heaven forbid, and they're going to take care of you. Your customer satisfaction, 100% of that is guaranteed. Call our friends at Stark Exterminators today for the free home or business pest inspection by simply calling 855-STARK now or go to starkexterminators.com. 855-STARK-NOW or starkexterminators.com. That's for the free home or business pest inspection. And as always, tell them Landrum from Three Man Front and Jock sent you.
So former Florida State and Florida Texas A&M head coach, national championship winning head coach Jimbo Fisher went on a podcast about a week ago and said, you know what? I want back in. I'm good. I'm ready to coach again. Well, going on Pardon My Takes podcast, part of the Barstool Network, Coach Ed Orgeron, Coach O, had this to say about a potential return.
So you do want to get back into coaching football, correct?
You know what?
Time?
I think it's time. I'm feeling a little bit. I haven't made the decision totally, but, I got my boys settled, coaching football now, and it's been 4 years since I've been out, and I'm getting the itch again.
So what does the last 4 years look like? Have you just been kind of laying low? Have you been watching football? Have you been talking to anyone about football? Because you are a football guy through and through.
Yeah.
It had to have been weird I would imagine that was one of the first times in your life since you were a little kid that you took a break from football.
Yeah. It was, I didn't know what was going to happen. We went down, one of my sons, Cody, and I went down to Miami, and Mario Cristobal has been great to me, who I coached at the University of Miami. And we asked him if we could get Cody a job as a young analyst. And he said, yeah, come on up. And Cody said, Daddy, Miami's a big city. You mind moving down here? I said, I'll volunteer.
That's a good dad. Yeah, you'll take one for the team.
So I moved down to Miami Beach, and I've been living there ever since.
It's interesting because I've never heard him say that was the reason why he moved to Miami Beach.
No, had no idea.
It had to do about the amount of money that LSU paid him living in a high-rise condo, living with his girlfriend, and working out on South Beach. Never heard him mention anything about he moved there because one of his sons told him he needed to move to Miami.
That's cool, and I appreciate that.
Well, I'm calling BS on that, but okay.
If that's the case, I was about to add, if that's truly the reason.
Never heard it until that podcast.
Hey, Dad, I just got a job in Topeka, Kansas. Do you think you want to come and move out there with me and help me get settled? I feel like maybe the answer's a little different.
Yeah,
tornadoes.
Maybe a little different answer in that one.
All right, so who gets the job first? Jimbo, Coach O?
Jimbo.
It's Jimbo. Well, okay.
I'm going to surprise both of you. I'm going to say it's Coach O.
Well, no, you didn't specify.
That's right, because I think Coach
Power
O,
4.
Coach O would take any job potentially, whereas Jimbo is going to be very selective.
No, if FIU came open, you don't think that Coach O would be all over it? Mm-hmm. I do.
FIU probably will be open.
Yeah.
And FAU will be open.
Every few years, FIU typically
or,
comes
he's probably hung out with Pitbull a lot in Miami, so he has an in.
Forgot about that, Pitbull Stadium, right?
And I'm sorry, Bama hater, but if Miami falls flat on their face this year, Mario Cristobal might be shown the door, and guess who's living right there ready to go?
Oh, do you think no, do you really think they would do that?
I do.
Really?
I do. We've said it a million times. The list of individuals that have won a national championship, it's a very small, inclusive group. And he is one of them. And you could say whatever you want to about him and Jimbo Fisher, but if he is sitting there in South Florida and he's got a history with the University of Miami, don't think for a second that they would not take a hard look at him.
That would be something.
Didn't say he would get it.
But he'd be on the list. Potentially.
Hour number 1 in the books, man, jam-packed. Appreciate Alex Scarborough joining us from Bama 247. Coming up in hour number 2, we're going to hear from Hugh Freeze. He is going to go to the microphone at 11:30. We will try to effort those comments to our audience so that you can listen to what he had to say about Friday's scrimmage. We got another scrimmage coming up Friday night. It will be their third and final scrimmage down on the Plains. Also in the 12 o'clock hour, it's the 115th anniversary of Rickwood Field. Mike Newton from the Friends of Rickwood will join us, and we'll get to your text messages and your phone calls straight ahead on this Reaction Monday. This is Jock's Three-Man Front.